Hi guys, welcome back to driven.aviator channel. Thank you for watching. In this episode, I want to talk about tailwheel flying, tailwheel landing, and how to master tailwheel landings. Special cars, rare bikes, and airplanes. This is what drives me. I'm Philip and I'm the Driven Aviator. Welcome to my channel. Let's start with a little story how I came to tailwheel flying, and the reason is right behind me. Actually, I fell in love with this beauty. It is a wild thing, a bush plane. Well, there was just one small problem to fly this thing. I needed a taildragger endorsement. Even though you might not need any endorsement for that, depending on the regulations in your country, it absolutely makes sense to do this endorsement, to do the training, to take a very experienced and proficient tailwheel instructor, because tailwheel flying is a lot different to normal flying techniques you might know from your conventional tricycle landing gear. Where's the biggest difference in airplanes with the tricycle landing gear versus taildragger airplanes? As you can see, the angle of attack when the plane is on the ground is tail low. So that is because the main weight is behind the landing gear and not straight on the landing gear. And this also causes another thing. It causes a high nose attitude. And high nose attitude is not so easy to steer, and especially not so easy to overview than a normal aircraft nose. So here we are. This is the thing everyone's talking about, our tail wheel. Our tail wheel, particularly at this airplane, is coupled to my rudder pedals. So in case I'm pushing the pedals right or left, my tail wheel will help me to steer, especially at low speeds. At higher speeds, you have the rudder and you have some wind on the rudder, so you don't need that anymore. But for low speeds, it is pretty helpful. Just for you guys to have a bit of context in terms of my tailwheel experience. So I started tailwheel flying with this bush plane, taildragger. It is a very slow plane. It is kind of easy to steer. It hasn't got such a nose high altitude, so you still can see plenty of things going on in front of your windshield. So it is not the worst plane to fly in terms of taildraggers, and not the most difficult one. I've also flown the Extra 300 LX during my aerobatics rating, which you can see in my other video in case you're interested in. And to be honest, this plane was more difficult to fly because there was a very high nose attitude. It is a fast plane. It is a very fast plane. It has much higher rotation and takeoff speeds, much higher landing speeds, and it is a very docile plane to fly. So every little stick movement makes a lot with your plane compared to this one, which is a pretty, it's a slow plane in all regards. So it is slow in terms of speed and slower in terms of steering inputs. So yeah, even if you're a very proficient tailwheel pilot, it can take you a lot of stuff to get used to other tailwheel aircraft, because every aircraft, especially in tailwheel environments, behaves different. Just in case you're wondering why there are tailwheel configurations and not only nosewheel configurations, let me tell you about the advantages a tailwheel aircraft has to offer. At first, as you can see, the tailwheel is really small. Because of this, you have less reduced parasite drag, so your plane can go faster with the same kind of power. And next thing is the ground clearance, especially when you're operating on rough fields. As you can see, because of the nose high attitude, the prop has a much higher ground clearance than it would have with a nose wheel. So this provides prop strikes and also provides stone chips being smashed to the airframe. So pretty useful in rough field conditions. Next thing is, if a tailwheel fails, mostly nothing happens, maybe except of a ground loop, depending on what kind of failure you have. But I'm pretty sure your airplane will be fine after that. If a nose wheel fails, you have a prop stripe, you can renew the whole engine, prop, whatever, maybe even your airframe, because it can get really worse. So of course you guys won't need to know how exactly the tailwheel training will be what the endorsement is all about and what your instructor will teach you. You will learn how to taxi the aircraft. This is one of the most important things, because I will show you the water dance you will do with your feet. Of course, you want to know how to take off and how to land properly in a tailwheel aircraft. And so what you will do is a lot of patterns, hopefully in crosswind conditions. Unfortunately, there's no crosswind, no wind at all today, which is good because you can hear me, but which is not good, as I wanted to show you some crosswind landings. But nevertheless, you will learn how to properly fly in all conditions that could occur. And afterwards, you will get your endorsement for a tailwheel. Alright guys, there we are back up in the cockpit again of our taildragger aircraft. And one of the most important things starting your taildragger training is to properly taxi a taildragger aircraft. So once we lose our brake and I start taxiing, the first thing you will notice is our nose high attitude. So please guys, be aware what is in front of you. As I told you, this airplane is not the most difficult one to taxi, but in case you have a very nose high attitude taildragger aircraft, you more taxi like a zigzag, so from left to right and right to left, because this gives you the opportunity to check what is in front of you regularly and to avoid hitting other aircraft or people or whatever else you might hit there. The next thing you're gonna notice is my tap dance on the waters. So in a tricycle gear aircraft, taxiing is pretty easy. You could more or less taxi the plane or let the plane taxi by itself. This is not possible with a taildragger aircraft. So you need a lot of corrections to stay on course, as you might see from my feet. And just another important thing, when you're on the ground, pull the stick. You want to pull the stick because you want to have load on your tail wheel, because this allows you to steer better and it avoids the very famous ground loop. I mean, a ground loop during taxi speeds is not that bad, but a ground loop after landing is even worse. So please always pull the stick, make sure you have load on your tail wheel. Alright, so we're good to go, all checks are made. Just make a quick radio announcement. Schöneberg Radio Delta Mike Tango Tango Sierra am Rollhaltpiste 25, geh auf die Piste und starte. So once again, taxi, pull the stick, bring load on your tail wheel, and make sure you have everything inside in front of you, and do the rudder dance. So this is our one-way. I hope you guys can see the wing, because if you see the angle of the wing compared to the ground, you see that the front is much higher than the rear end of the wing. And as our airstream is coming directly from the front, this is not the best angle of attack we could have. So that is the reason that I will raise my tail at a specific type of speed. So what I will do now during the takeoff, I will still keeping the stick pulled full backwards to have load on my tail wheel and being able to steer. Once I have enough airflow on my water back there, I'm able to raise the tail by bringing the stick forward. So you bring it pretty much in a normal angle of attack compared to the airflow. Let me show you guys how to do this one. Okay, temps and pressures are good. We're ready to go. Takeoff power is set. Pull the stick. See the airspeed. Airspeed is alive. Raise the tail. And now she wants to go. There we are. This is how to take off in a tailwheel aircraft.
The rest of taking off is pretty much the same like in any other aircraft. So once you reach the safe altitude, you bring back the flaps in. I was at flap stage 1. You see the blue line, so I'm trying to accelerate the blue line. Once we are at pattern altitude of around 1,000 feet, there's kind of a low ceiling today. I love low clouds, but not when flying VFR. Okay, so this is our pattern altitude. Let's get to a tailwheel landing, one of the most important things. And a good tailwheel landing starts with a good downwind, and we are on the downwind right now. Schönebeck Radio, Delta Mike Tango Tango Serra, Gegenanflugpiste 25. So this goes for all aircraft, but especially in this one, you want to make sure to have a proper downwind, which brings you to a proper base and a proper final leg, and finally a good landing. Because timing in a taildragger landing is much more important than it is in normal landing gears, tricycle landing gears. Because during a flare out, you want to bring the aircraft to a stall. Basically, you try to stall it during flare out, so it settles directly on the ground. So first stage of flaps here. This is our runway. Keeping a stable approach. This is a very light aircraft with a bad glide ratio, so we are able to fly short patterns. Now we are on final. Bringing out the second stage of flaps, reducing my power. You are also flying a very steep angle, because if you're flying a steep angle, you can even just needed to reduce the power a bit. The steep angle has the big advantage that you can see where you will land, because otherwise if you would drag it in with too much power, no chance that you have any idea what is in front of you. So as I said, you're flaring now, flaring, 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 and there you are, and pull the stick and dance on the rudders. Bring the flaps in to have more weight on your gears. Okay, flaps 1, and we're good to go for another one. Take off power set, raise your tail, and get up in the air. As you guys have seen, there's not much of a crosswind. There's nearly no wind at all, but let's assume there would be a crosswind, just with other airplanes too. There are basically two methods you could handle this crosswind. So the first is with a wing low altitude into the wind with your ailerons. That is method number 1. And the second one is to use your rudder and fly in a crab angle. But there's no difference to tricycle landing gears in this. So this is our second attempt. We are right above the numbers, starting to reduce the power. Once again, a good downwind, a good base, makes a good final and a good landing. And once again, you want to have a stable approach and a steep approach to keep your nose down and allow you to see what is going on down there. So, I reduced the power fully because I want to show you a dead stick landing with the tail dragger, which is pretty easy once you're used to it. Flaps 2. Shorten your pattern and let it glide. Steep angle. And again, I will flare it or try to stall it during my flare. That is the most important thing. And afterwards, please have a look on my feet as I will do the rudder dance. And I'm pulling the stick fully backwards to have rate on my tail wheel. Alright, flare it, flare it, flare it. Pull the stick, pull the stick, pull the stick, pull the stick, pull the stick. Let it settle, pull the stick further. Tap dance on the rudders. Try to keep it straight, 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 straight. That is the most important thing. If you want to avoid the glide loop, try to keep the plane straight, and you are doing this with a lot of rudder input with your feet. Alright. I'm not sure if I told you about this. Once you are on the ground, please bring back up your flaps, because this gives also weight on your main gear and helps you not to get back up in the air. I mean, if your landing was good, you were already at the stall, but imagine you have some gusts or something like that, you want to bring up your flaps. At least with this airplane, it is much easier to land then.
Alright guys, that was our video of the Tailwheel taildragger training. I hope you liked it. Just in case, if you're still curious what this is for, let me tell you that a tailwheel training, and especially the endorsement with a good instructor, makes you a much better pilot. It makes you flying much more precise than you would do without a tailwheel training. I can tell you from flying with a lot of different airplanes, for example, like this one, or with my twin Bonanza, or any aircraft I'm flying, I participate from this training, from this tailwheel training, in every landing, and I wouldn't miss it, to be honest. And of course, a tailwheel training gives you the opportunity to fly a lot of really, really cool and great aircraft, especially like this one, like bush aircraft. I mean, there are good reasons why there is no tricycle gear bush aircraft, at least I'm not aware. If there is, please write me in the comments. Otherwise, be sure, a tailwheel training and a tailwheel endorsement gives you the opportunity to access a great range of bush planes. All right, I hope you liked it. In case you're not following me yet, please subscribe, and see you soon on one of the next videos. Bye-bye.
Driven hard in the clouds, fly so high, shout it loud.